three people watching, this is a session 0, and we are figuring out what we're trying to do here and how we're going to do it. And I think we do have an idea what we're trying to do, which is discuss current events and deeper ideas related to them. Beyond that, it's just going to evolve. Oh, I see what you're trying to do.
I don't know why I did that, though.
You're starting to get that infinite loop again.
Oh, yeah, I think I fixed it.
You're still about 3 windows deep.
I don't know why I did that. Yeah, I had to fix that. I think I fixed it, though.
I don't think you fixed. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
there we go.
I fixed it.
I see it.
Yeah.
Cool. Look at what didn't happen this week. Yeah, I do the June 10th one. Was what I was looking at. And yeah, I think I was listening to a Metzinger talk where he talked about intellectual honesty, and at the basic level, it's simply not lying to yourself, and part of that is having an accurate awareness of what reality is. So I think
Well, that's pretty hard nowadays.
what, having an accurate view of reality or not lying to yourself?
Both.
Yeah,
I think those feed into each other, and you get a lot of messaging on both sides that make it very hard to determine what the truth is. It's, knowing where to get the resources that make a difference that matters, I think. And knowing what, viable news agencies there are, and not listening to junk. But even that, some people will... I was listening to an interview with a pretty prominent intellectual that was swearing that the AP and routers had it out for him. Which is usually a sign that person is not intellectually honest.
Yeah. Or they have it out for other reasons. I mean, I go to AP and Reuters because that's those two, and I'll have to find the graphics, but there's a graphic that makes the rounds every few years that shows both the left and right bias and the reliability of the sources. And it was like AP, Reuters, the Weather Channel, and the Denver Post were the top ones. So then if you don't trust that graphic and you don't trust the people collecting that data, at some point we start going down the rabbit hole to fundamental
It's like my infinite window problem.
Yeah, it's how do you, at some point, that's a major issue, is people can decide, once you decide that there is an active, intentional effort to deceive large swaths of the population, you can believe whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can start believing the Earth is flat. You can start believing anything, that the moon landing was fake, and all of those wind up connecting with each other because they're all premised on the idea that reliable information is itself deceptive. So, yeah, to get back to your original, I think it's difficult to find accurate information, but it's not impossible.
No, it's certainly not impossible. If it were impossible, then we would have an impossible task. And I don't think we have an impossible task ahead of us necessarily.
Well, that depends on what the task ahead of us is.
That's true. That's certainly true.
Because the Pyrrhonist argument is that it is impossible to have 100% reliable information.
Well, I think that's an interesting claim, but I think that's like a limited claim in relationship to what it is that we're specifically referring to most of the time in society. Which is I feel like the Pyrrhonist says, well, maybe, we can't really know reality. And I think that is probably true. But most of the stuff that we're dealing with is constructed. And in those cases, the truth of those things is established because they're constructed facts, right?
Oh, that's yeah, I see. Because the Pyrrhonist argument is that all knowledge has to be either axiomatic, like it's something that you just declare to be the case, or it has to be based on something prior that eventually leads back to something that was simply declared to be the case,
Right.
or
And
it's circular reasoning.
right, and it seems like that is actually the truth for most like social information. Right? It's like, why is it true? Is because we said it's true.
Mm,
At least for
I
that
think
information, I think that that's what we're talking about because it is defined that way. Like, why does a word mean what it means? It means what it means because we say it means what it means.
uh,
Right? The phonemes
or
themselves are completely arbitrary.
oh, of course they're arbitrary. But when we say a word means what it means, there's in French, yeah, there's a body that actually declares what the language is and what it means. English, being a vernacular language, it's common use. So literally means the opposite of what literally means simply because of common use. Uh, and so when we say a word means what it means, we is a very broad category. But then there are some things that are like take the top thing on there, not real news for June. The first one, they're saying COVID vaccines do not kill more people than rifles.
I took that off. Sorry.
Okay, and that's a fact. But it's a fact based on data collection conventions, and it's people didn't. The issue, a lot of the issue with the virus was simply that folks believed the truth could be whatever it was declared to be, that there was some body that was deciding that this is this deadly and that this is going to do X and these are the death rates. And it's like, no, that they weren't describing that data, they were observing that data and reporting it.
Right.
So yeah, conventional truth, it's and that's where Nagarjuna took the Pyrrhonist doctrine and said, okay, like you said, we've got a conventional truth which is based largely on social agreement, and then we've got the ultimate truth, and ultimate truth is probably empty. But so is that what we're doing? Trying to put some epistemic rigor into current events and people's
Sure.
belief
I mean,
systems?
whatever. We can talk about anything, man. I feel like
All right.
that's the main thrust is just to, discuss what's going on and see what we can do about, providing a little bit more epistemic rigor in the and in specifically the Twitch economy,
Mm-hmm.
the Twitch media realm.
The economy of ideas, where we might not have many, but they should be solid and reliable and not prone to massive fluctuations in price or value.
Right, right.
Speaking of,
Speaking of which, Bitcoin is just a fucking nightmare right now. Look at that. That's 1 day. Let's go to the 5-day. Brutal, man. And there you go. There's your real. And then if we go to the 6-month, you'll see the real
mm,
evaluation.
I have been.
Here, let's go to TradingView and tradingview.com.
Okay. I've been very, very vaguely, tangentially aware of what Bitcoin has been doing, and I'm not the least bit surprised.
Oh, look, there's its all-time.
Speaking from a place of total ignorance, I'm, what?
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. It's. Oh wait, I'm on the wrong website.
I'm looking at Google right now.
Here, let me do that. There you go. So you can see the just disaster in the markets, man. Right, there was some,
Woo!
yeah, absolute
It's
disaster
still up.
there. It's still up. Yeah, it's still up from where it started. But
It's moving back towards where it could actually be a usable currency. Like, I assume when folks have the Bitcoin debit cards or whatever, that they're spending fractions of a fraction of a Bitcoin. And
well, the problem is that Bitcoin isn't really good for that. Right? Like, it turned out that you can't really spend it on anything. Right?
Mhm.
If you have it, then you can only spend it if you have it in a wallet, and you can only put it in a wallet if you have a certain amount of it. So for most people, it wasn't possible for them to purchase enough Bitcoin to actually start spending it.
So instead of a currency, it became a commodity.
Yeah, it became like a stock.
Yeah. I mean, I'm using commodity specifically in the sense that, like, a stock is a portion of a company that is doing something. A Bitcoin is like a pound of iron or an ounce of gold. It's just there. Its sole value is based on its
trading
scarcity.
value. Yeah,
It's based
absolutely.
on scarcity.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. All these coins
and
are
like
that.
Mm-hmm.
And
like, I mean,
they all traded off of Bitcoin too. Like, if you look at the like the red here, if we go to like Coinbase,
yeah, see what Doge is up to.
if we go to Coinbase, you'll see.
Right? I was really rooting
this
for
is
Dogecoin.
what this is what you should be worried about here. This is what I started noticed when I started buying coins, is that they all track the same, dude.
Huh?
Like, they're not identical, but like they're close, dude.
Sure.
Look at these two.
But this is for over the course of what? Doge? Yeah, Doge is a mirror.
But look at that. Look, you'll see, but it's like almost a mirror everywhere.
Sure.
On all of them. And that is deeply concerning. Look, you can even see it right here with Ethereum.
Why is that concerning?
Well, it means that there are giant whales that are buying and selling these products. In order to make, right, in order for all of these currencies to have the same pattern, it means that they're all essentially tied through this one currency, which is this one here.
Or
so they don't have individual value, because when this one fell, right, because these all fell proportionate to the Bitcoin value. Like, if you look, this one was at 3,000 when this one hit 60, and now this is a third of its value now.
Okay. That doesn't necessarily imply a conscious agency behind that.
No, it doesn't. But I think that, you know.
Like, you know what I see looking at those?
What?
I see the Mandelbrot set. I see zooming in or zooming out the coins that are worth 50 cents displaying the same behavior as the coins that are worth tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's because it's the same people who
fractal.
It's because it's the same people who buy and sell them.
Or because they're simply following the same essentially chaotic market laws.
That
like
may be true, but there is a certain set of people who is in the market for these. It's not a huge market. And also, we know there are whales that have chosen to take out a lot of the value of Bitcoin, which is why we see these gigantic dips.
Yep.
Right? You see these bars.
What you need is some way to short sell them, because short selling tends to dampen.
I don't even think it's an FCC like guaranteed commodity. Like, even if there was fraud here, I don't even think that you could get your money back.
Yeah. Short selling, it would probably be easier with Bitcoin. Basically, what you would do is borrow some coins from somebody and then sell them, and then wait for the price to drop, buy more coins, and pay back the loan that you took out. So like if somebody had borrowed coins from someone at 56K and then sold them immediately, now that they're down to 23, they could buy the same number of coins at 23, return them, pay back the loan that they took out, and pocket the difference.
Yeah.
The problem is if it never fell, they would just wind up, they would still owe the coins back and they would have to spend more. So one effect that short selling has on stocks is that it dampens the highs and it pushes up the lows because people are selling when things are high and then they're buying it back when things are low. So
Right.
it compresses the variation.
And sometimes people are forced to sell
Mm-hmm.
when they, right, depending on what kind of, right, that's what happened with GameStop.
Oh, Gamergate! Back in the how long ago was that?
GameStop. Everybody was there. They were shorting the stock, and they kept
Mhm.
pushing the stock up, so
Mhm.
that they couldn't, so that they had to buy it back at that price.
Yep. But yeah, I think you do see a lot of like it's that individual coins will track each other. I don't know if that's so. I think you'd have to compare that to something else to see whether that's really unusual.
Yeah, I can't
Like-
remember where I read it, but my understanding was that the Bitcoin was like the like gold essentially, and everything was trading through Bitcoin.
Mm. So it was the index of all the other coins.
Yeah, that was my understanding. Because like once you get into crypto trading, what you start to realize is if you want to move your money around and all you have is crypto, the only common currency that people will take that you can get enough of is Bitcoin.
Mm.
So what would end up happening, maybe it wasn't the purpose of it, but what would end up happening intentionally or unintentionally, if you wanted to move your money around in the cryptoverse, right, you would have to put it into Bitcoin to move it. And that to me was my first indication that the market was unstable.
Oh yeah.
And that was the first time I got into it. When I started trading cryptos, I realized that this was a very, very short bubble, and whoever was pumping money into it was going to get really, really rich, and I was probably going to end up with nothing.
Well, and that's why, like, a lot of folks who talk about getting back to the gold standard, that's a bit of historical information they missed, is that even when countries were on the gold standard, there were still wild fluctuations in value. You could still have massive inflation. And in this case, this shows what happens when you have a real fixed amount of currency, when you can't just double or triple the amount of bitcoins in circulation in order to keep the price down. You wind up with prices rising and rising and rising, and then more exposure to market shocks. So this, because there's not a fixed amount, but because it's very difficult to get more, you're going to have less price stability compared to if you've got some asshole sitting in an office saying, "Oh, we need to raise the prime interest rate on Bitcoin so that the price will start to rise, the value will start to rise again."
Right.
Like, this is out of control, or rather, it's being controlled by the whales who are controlling it for the purpose of trying to profit. Once they've sold all their stuff, they're not controlling it anymore. So there's no oversight, which was the ideal behind the coin.
They didn't want there to be any oversight of the coins.
Mm-hmm. But this is one possible result of a complete lack of oversight. Is you get small numbers of players that wind up with outsized influence.
Right.
But I still like it in theory. I still think it would be nice to get to a place where it was usable by, everyday schmucks like me who don't really pay attention. So, That is interesting. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. I imagine at some point, like the coins still exist, they're just less valuable. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the
at
coins
some
still
point,
exist. I mean, they can purge
people.
the coins or delete the coins somehow. And there's certain processes for doing that, but
Ooh, that would be because if you, I mean, deleting coins would make the remaining coins more valuable.
yeah, then
So
and
that
that
could be
happens with
dangerous.
certain coins, and people have talked about that in specific instances with like coins like Shiba Inu and things like that.
Hmm.
But I'm not a professional trader, and I don't have a degree in or anything in this. So,
No, hey, you know more than I do.
well, I'm certainly not
Hmm.
an authority.
I took, I took intro to macroeconomics and intro to microeconomics, and I read a few books, and that's the extent of which probably does give provide at least a marginally greater knowledge base than the overwhelming majority of people who have opinions on what the markets are doing. But like you said, certainly neither of us is an authority. It just occurred to me the refrain of people not wanting to work anymore uh, was basically the same phrase one was hearing about 12 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, when we were in a recession and unemployment was really high. That, oh, unemployment is high because people are lazy and they don't want to work. So it seems like no matter whether there's not enough jobs to go around and people are out of work, or whether there's a surplus of jobs and a shortage of labor, the answer, the easy go-to answer, is that it's because people are lazy and don't want to work,
Yeah,
which I found amusing.
yeah. I mean, I've even heard like some pretty famous people say stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
That's
Yeah,
kind of
it's,
astonishing.
well, the fact is, I almost said, the trend is that low unemployment and inflation track. Like inflation and unemployment tend to be inversely correlated. That's not always the case, but it's usually the case that when you have a labor shortage, people are fully employed for one, and so they have spending money, and jobs have to offer more money in order to hire people back, which results in inflation because there's simply more money in circulation. That and the fact that we somehow managed, because let's see this Bitcoin chart. Okay, 2020 to 2021, when the real economy, when the so-called Main Street economy was locked down,
Right.
Bitcoin went through the roof. The stock market also continued to rise. So value continued to be, if not created, at least it continued
What
to
are you
increase.
talking about?
I'm talking about 2020 to 2021. I'm talking about the height of the lockdown, the COVID lockdowns, and the virus, when so many businesses were shutting down and a lot of people were out of work. The stock market, the Dow Jones, was still rising, and that's another reason why it's not terribly surprising that if you've got stable prices, increasing profits, when the real economic activity has been reduced, once you reopen, of course, once people start spending money again, start actually generating real world economic activity, then it's another cause of inflation going through the roof, is that the markets were pretty heavily influenced in order to, which is a good thing probably, that we didn't have a market crash when everything was locked down. But it's still, these are consequences of prior actions that we like to find easy fixes and, or at least easy explanations for. I don't know, what's your take on inflation and the markets in general?
I mean, inflation and the markets in general, I think, they're inflation and Bitcoin. I don't think are that related to each other. I think that this was like a hype thing. People saw it going up and going up and going up. They didn't want to miss out, man. And then they started to realize, the people who had a whole bunch of it started to realize that it wasn't going to last forever, and they started selling all of it. Now, as far as the inflation stuff goes, I mean, that's a really complicated one. But as far as I can tell, the reason for inflation is that corporations were working with really tight margins on their import and export of products and their production of products in general. And when we switched from a service-based economy to a goods-based economy, as people started staying home and, you know, we stopped going out as much and spending most of our money eating out and all that, the goods-based services that we were getting mostly from China and overseas, and, you know, was just not ready to handle the influx of new orders, and people started building more houses or not building more houses, but working on their
more
homes.
houses.
They were they were building more houses, but they were also working on their homes, right? The prices of lumber went up a lot. Prices of rent obviously have gone up a lot. I mean, just in general, the prices of living have gone up a lot.
Oh yeah, I mean,
So-
that's what inflation is.
Well,
And-
and I think the reason for that is because we just transitioned to a different type of economy, and we weren't used to importing as much goods as we did, and that just created a whole bunch of problems in the logistics chain of this country.
Yep.
That just threw
No,
a whole
that's-
wrench and everything.
That's
like a little kid
definitely a
riding a bike.
factor. Uh-huh.
I mean, a lot of people want to blame the government, dude, but like, I mean, this is kind of the craziest thing for me. It's like the one thing I don't understand is people asking the government to step in and then claiming that we're living in a capitalist country.
Oh, I think
That's the
The-
craziest
the-
thing to me, dude. It's like, yes, the government has some responsibility for like regulation and all this other stuff, but when people start blaming the government for when corporations can't import goods because they're working with such tight margins and intentionally just trying to suck as much profit out of the system as possible, it just shows that capitalism is fragile. And it isn't
it's extremely
really as
fragile.
strong as people make, especially as capitalism makes it out to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, capitalism
Yeah.
constantly is asking for handouts from the government, which makes
Yep.
absolutely no sense to me. Like,
Oh, it's
hearing Republicans lambaste the government or the president for not helping business enough is just weird to me. It's just really weird because it's just so antithetical to the position.
to reality. And that's
Yeah, well,
been the
that-
system
that's
for
true. That's true too.
that's been the system. Mixed economies have been the standard since the Great Depression, if not before. Like we haven't been a purely capitalist system in a very long time, or a purely socialist system. The government, you're absolutely right that corporations certainly aren't nearly as strong and independent as they make out to be. And at the same time, the government does not have as much power over how the economy goes as a lot of people claim that it has. I mean, the Federal Reserve did inject about $1.5 trillion of liquidity into the markets. And that wasn't borrowed. That wasn't a congressional budget that borrowed $1.5 trillion to spend on X, Y, and Z. It was simply the manifestation of more currency. The same quantitative easing that they used in 2008 and 2009 and onwards in order to cushion the recession, except we didn't go into a recession. They enacted quantitative easing when the markets were still growing, and that's another factor in why suddenly values exploded and everybody decided to cash out.
Yeah,
but you're right.
I think that's, I mean, and what we're not talking about now, and I think what leads into the next part of what we could possibly talk about is just the general housing problem, right? Housing is so expensive now, right?
It's
and
absurd.
Partially because of the transition of people moving outside of big cities where they were making way more money than what you would normally make for the cost of living inside of like a place like where really anywhere, any suburb of a big city, right? Now you can go live in the country and get internet and have absolutely no worries, making the same amount of money that you were living at like a half or a third of the income, and you're completely set, right? But you doing that now creates a huge problem for the rest of the people that you just went and lived with, because now their property values are unsustainable for them and they can't even afford the taxes in some cases.
Oh, yeah, that didn't occur to me. I mean, obviously you're going to have like rent is ridiculous, and but yeah, even property taxes. I
don't think property taxes are going to make or break any homeowner, but at the same time, if your property goes up 3 times in value from when you bought it, if you bought the home for $100,000 and you make $100,000 income and your home suddenly becomes worth $500,000, which some properties have.
Depending on what state you're in, yeah, the property taxes are going to be outrageous.
Right, there are certain properties that have increased in value by almost 4-fold.
Ooh.
And your taxes go up on those properties. I mean, I'm not saying that that's going to make or break you, but it's that's a lot of money difference. It'll make or break
some people.
That'll make or break some people.
Yep, it'll definitely hit people on the margins, especially folks who moved earlier and got into the same sorts of leverage situations that screwed people before. I forget if the previous administration actually managed to repeal the the Dodd-Frank Act? No, they tried, but they didn't. So they still don't have the same kind of ninja loans that they had that caused the property bubble back in 2008. But yeah, there's folks are going to be buying as much house as they can afford, and especially if they also have
some people are now
a
buying
nicer car,
way more house than they should, right? Way more house than they, not that they can afford necessarily, but just way more house than
just need, afford. Like, it's at some point you start getting into value judgments in the sense of normative judgments. But yeah, the point is that your point is well taken, that while property value increase looks like a good thing on paper, if you don't have access to that value, then yeah, the taxes can really hit you where it hurts. And 2, there is the issue of like scarcity. One of the reasons the prices are not going down is the lack of availability and the delay in building new homes, which part of that was due to, like you said, the cost of lumber and all those. And then part of that is zoning issues and a lot of neighborhoods resistance, having a lot of folks moving out into the suburbs or into different cities, and they don't want to see apartment complexes. They don't want to see multifamily homes, multifamily zoning. They just want it to be an ever-expanding series of single-family, ticky-tacky, stick-frame houses, which take longer to build and are less efficient. So if they can start building more multifamily units, more apartment complexes, things like that, then that can at least free up some of the supply side pressure. But then people wind up renting and or well, I guess you can still own condos and whatnot. Uh, I don't know. That gets weird. Like when you own a segment of a larger building. But my opinion is on in the long run, uh, spreading things out might be beneficial. Um, being able to work, being able to telecommute, work from home, use the internet, it's going to make things a lot more reliant on internet, which makes things fragile. But it's it may be a net gain in efficiency as opposed to
Oh, I
folks
think it's absolutely
concentrating
going to be a
inside
net gain in
cities.
efficiency.
Hmm.
Yeah, there. I mean,
But
the faster we can get people out of offices and into their homes, I think the better off we'll be in our society. To be honest with you,
oh yeah,
I mean,
yep.
it's just children are just so unsupervised now at young ages because their parents are commuting all the time, and
Mm.
early childhood and early like adolescence are so important for developing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there. I've been. I was speaking to a teacher. Well, I know a few teachers, and one of them in particular was saying that there has been a noticeable impact in terms of socialization. Uh, Seeing kids coming back into classrooms after a few years, and the in terms of attention span, in terms of just ability to stay on task and listen and talk and all that. So I think, I mean, on the one hand, having parents around might help, but there's also peer-to-peer contact is important too, and that's one thing that one would lose even as an adult with going into offices. We still need some sort of face-to-face interaction. Hmm. But it would be much improved if it's outside of the context of a work hierarchy. And yeah, if kids have their parents around, even just reducing the commute time, that would help a lot.
Yeah, I think having cars that drive themselves is going to be huge as well.
Yeah, I mean, we
Freeing up
have.
that time is massive.
Hmm. I still haven't explored the public transit options where I'm at, but I really need to, especially gas prices, bro. $5.80 near where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
It,
$5 here now.
oh
It's absolutely
yeah,
insane.
it is. And of course that is again there isn't the knob on the president or the speaker of the house's desk that says gas price that you turn and you raise the gas prices or lower them. That's probably got a lot to do with Russia and Ukraine,
Oh, absolutely, man.
but it's still it's a whole confluence of factors that
Yeah,
drives
I mean,
inflation
let's
and
look at
everything else.
why are gas prices going up. Let's see. Let's see what people have to say. NPR.
It'll be
Yeah,
several.
there we go. The recovery from the pandemic and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Yep, that's what NPR
Oh,
says at
crude
least.
prices went negative. I forgot about that. That was hilarious. Some people had to pay refiners to remove the oil from their storage because they couldn't just stop pumping it. So they had to pay in order to get it removed so they could keep pumping more. Negative prices are wild. I think didn't Europe do something with negative interest rates? I think the Eurozone had negative interest rates at one point. They were paying people to borrow money.
That's crazy.
Uh-huh.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah,
I would
well, it's a good
absolutely love that.
it's one way to promote economic activity and stimulate an economy. As opposed to giving people a set amount, you simply give them a loan option with a negative interest rate, which gets money out into people's pockets.
Let's see how much the price per barrel of oil is now. $120, it says.
Huh. That's
I think that's what it says. I'm pretty sure that's what I'm reading.
yep.
I could be wrong. That looks like $120 to me.
That appears correct,
That
which
appears to be
is
right.
not
Yeah.
as high as I expected. I forget what it was back in 2000.
Well, for a moment there, it hit like
Eight.
$185 a gallon.
Ooh.
Man. Or per.
Yeah, that was that Python lump when stuff got cut off from Russia.
That was insane, dude.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we need to sanction their economy. Wait, they actually have an economy. It's not like sanctioning Iran or North Korea or something. Russia makes things where there some we would have to actually, and by we I mean like the West and democracies, Europe, the free world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There would have to be some sort of economic impact and sacrifices to be made to fully sanction that kind of stuff. But second by second, what are we looking at? DJI. Yeah, it's not. A day?
It's dropped $800 today.
$800 points?
$800.
800. What?
$800.
The hell are we looking at? Oh, okay. Oh, that's just a value of an index share.
Yeah.
I mean, dropping 2.8% is more indicative.
Yeah,
We had
everything's
one of the.
struggling right now, man. Let's look at
I mean,
Tesla.
we had one of the longest bull markets in living memory,
Look at this
at least
one.
in recent times. So
Jesus.
again, this was something that was for sure coming, that we saw coming. It was just a question of when.
Yeah.
It's weird though, because you and I, we lived through a recession, but we did not. The last inflationary cycle this bad was back in the 70s or 80s. So it's a very different kind of economic catastrophe.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to go on.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. 2020. Like, look where it was 2020, right? And then from 2020 to, we're still looking at, what are we looking at right now? Oh, just Tesla. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, this is Tesla. I mean, all
Yeah,
the stocks look very
good for
similar to
them.
this, yeah? Right?
Uh,
If we look at Trading View, if we look at, here, I'll just show you. This is interesting.
Because yeah, the fact that so many things were locked down and so many people
Look
were
at
worried,
that.
so many
Look how similar those
businesses.
two look.
Waiting for it to catch up. Oh, Bitcoin and Tesla?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a bit of similar demographics there, too.
True. Tesla also owned a bunch of Bitcoin. Which
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Shoot, I wonder if Musk had to sell some Bitcoins in his attempt to buy Twitter.
I don't know if he's buying Twitter still.
I mean, he's still up. Last I checked, he was still under contract. The point is, he had to come up with the money somehow. I'll bet he had a lot of Bitcoin.
Probably.
But
That'd be
overall,
part
what
of
the
it.
markets did compared to what the rest of the economy did, like it's not. A, it had to come down, and B, those stocks being sold off and turned into cash, that makes a lot of sense. You'll get inflation out of that, and just general readjustment period. So. And full employment. I mean, what's the unemployment rate right now?
I don't know. Let's look.
It is. Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Really low, I think. 3.6%.
So yeah, 3.6 below 4 is considered too low, which is weird. Simply because one would imagine 0 would be the ideal, but when you've got like you need what's the word? Elasticity in the job market. The reason quote unquote nobody wants to work is because nobody is available to work. And why would you work
Also, the
at a
jobs that are
minimum?
available currently are not very good.
Yeah, and people are able to get better jobs. Like, why would you work
I
a
think
job
the
that's not very good
the
if you
biggest issue
can?
right now is they're in service jobs, right? All the jobs that disappeared. Sorry, I cut you off though. What were you gonna say?
No, you're absolutely right. All the jobs that disappeared were service jobs. Those people got other jobs,
Right,
figured something out,
right.
and it's the same thing when everybody was buying toilet paper
Yeah, yeah,
and
dude. Oh
suddenly
gosh.
there's no toilet paper. Okay, and then everybody was buying gasoline, and suddenly there's a shortage of gasoline. When everybody is trying to rehire workers at the same time, you're going to have a worker shortage. And 3.6, anything below 4% is going to be a shortage.
Yeah.
Compared to in 2020, the unemployment rate hit 8.3%, but the Dow was still rising.
Right.
So there's a major disconnect there between what was happening to everyday folks and what was happening in the stock market.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
and the amount of money that got pumped into the stock market to prop that up eventually, trickled down to everyday folks, and that shower of money trickling down is another thing that's pumping up prices.
Yeah.
So
All right, man. Well, you want to call our first one here and we can look over some stuff?
yeah, I think that's good. I think it's a good time frame, and it was nice. There was some flow. I think having your list of here we're going to talk about this and then we're going to talk about this uh, help to move things along. We should do that next time. We'll put probably Jan 6 at the head of the next one and then come up with a few more ideas and maybe
Yeah.
even do some advanced research.
Yeah, maybe
Imagine
we
that.
will.
Hmm.
I think there's definitely going to be some more things to talk about with January 6th specifically. Once more hearings have come out, more news coverage, maybe we can get some quick clips to go over and
Yeah.
see what goes from there.
Yeah.